Hello boys and girls, welcome to day 2 of our project. Today we're going to start coloring it in, and I want you to think about the materials you have at home. Do you have crayons? Do you have markers? Do you have colored pencils? Do you have paint? If you only have one of those things, or if you have a couple of those things, then you can use any or all of those materials. If you don't have paint at home, but you have food coloring, such as this. I like the neon ones because they're nice and bright, but any food coloring will work, and you can add a couple of drops of that to a little bit of water. I added 5 drops and I made this nice blue paint. So I didn't have to use any paint. I created it with food coloring. Another way you can create your own paint is if you have markers and you want to add maybe a little bit of purple to your sky, you can use, it has to be a washable marker, so make sure it's washable. And you can draw on your paper with that marker, and then you can take a paintbrush, or if you don't have a paintbrush, you can dip a Q-tip in some water, and you can put that water on your brush or your Q-tip and go along that marker, and it'll create like a little paint so that you have some paint and you're using one material. You can use the marker on the rest of your area, and then if you want it to look more like a painted picture, then you can add some water to that, and it'll pull that pigment from the marker, and it'll be able to be used as paint. It's going to take 2 days to color. So first day we're going to do part of it with color, and then the second day of coloring will be the second part. So just take 2 days to color it in. Okay, so I am done coloring in the first or the back 2 sections. I'm going to leave these front 2 sections for the second day of coloring. So I am done coloring it in, so I want to make sure that I have filled in all the white areas that are supposed to be colored in. So I decided that this is going to be snow, but I didn't want to leave it just plain white. I feel like that would be too much white to leave on my paper. So I used a little bit of light blue to make it look a little nice and neat. But I left the tops of the mountains white, but I can come in and add a little bit of blue to it because I think of ice, little ice crystals coming off of those mountains. I don't want to add too much because I do want it to look like little snowy caps on these mountains. So for our first day of coloring, we're going to stop at the first 2 or the last 2 sections. So you're only going to color in 2 sections. Next time we're going to color in the other 2 sections. So stop here for our first day of coloring. Welcome back to our 3rd day of our project. Last time we worked on the last 2 or top 2 sections of our project. Today we're going to be working on the final 2 sections of our project. So we will be coloring them in nice and neatly and making sure that any white areas are colored in. So we're going to work on that part for our 3rd day of our project. In the distance, you can see that everything is just kind of one color. We haven't added much detail to it, but as we get closer and closer, we're going to start adding more details and more colors. So instead of just adding maybe one single color, it's going to have maybe more leafy looking textures on the trees, maybe more furry textures on your animals, but it's going to have a lot more detail to it as we get closer and closer and closer. So as I'm coloring in, I might use more colors than I would with the back area. So I'm gonna make sure I use each color nicely so that it flows together as I color. And that's going to give you the idea that this is more close up and it has more details and it's more realistic looking. So the way I make it look like fur is to draw some lines, kind of curved lines, going around the form to kind of give it that look of texture. So that it doesn't just look like a solid animal. It has some definition to it, it's got some detail to it, and I might go back with a different color. Going back and forth, just making those lines to add that texture, making it appear like it's fur, rather than just coloring it all in. And the more pressure I apply with my pencil, with my hand, the more the pencil is going to show darker lines. So if I'm just doing it gently, it's all going to kind of blend in together. But if I want some of that fur to stand out, I have to apply more pressure on my pencil. And that'll give it that texture of fur a little bit more. Maybe some overlapping areas of fur. So it's like one on top of the other. Think about like brushing down the coat of fur. So as you can see, I colored it all in. I have this nice soft blue to indicate that this isn't just white, but it has a little bit of texture in the snow. I have my close-up objects that have more detail than my back objects, and you can see that the trees are starting to get smaller and smaller as they go into the distance. My animals are big at the front and getting smaller, and if I had another one, it would be even smaller in the background. So the end of day 3, you should have the entire inside of your world, inside of your imagination colored in. So it's like a little peek into your story, into your own world that you've created. Welcome to day 4 of our project. We are going to be working on the outside of our picture. And for the outside, it's going to be like an extension of what we've done inside, but very minimal. So what I mean by that is I'm going to look at my world and I'm going to see what stands out to me. So what I see is that I have the night sky and I have lots of trees. So I might do some big trees coming off of the page. And maybe I place some big stars going around. So I'm creating an extension. That means that the objects that I have inside my picture are going to be emphasized on the outside of my picture. So if I have a tropical idea, like a jungle, maybe there's a bunch of vines in it and I can have some big vines going around with some big leaves, maybe some flowers going around it. It shouldn't be animals though, or people. It should be the natural elements that you see in your picture. And I'm going to take my materials and I'm going to start coloring them in. Okay, so once I have everything painted in or colored in, it doesn't matter what material you use, whatever you have access to that you would like to use, I'm going to take my black pen and I'm going to outline the different areas just to kind of give them a little bit more ability to see them clearly. Once I have everything outlined, I'm going to look through and make sure I have all the details that I want, all the decorations that I want. Everything's colored in nice and neatly, paying attention to coloring inside the lines and adding details. But this is the final project and I'm happy with the results and I can't wait to see what you create.